Welcome to Missing the Mark, where we look for meaning in strange places. I'm Christopher. Today I'd like to talk about the concept of life having the meaning that you give it. This comes up because if you look at the meaning that life has, there are two possibilities. If the world was created by a rational creator who imbued it with a purpose, a rational purpose, that is to say, a purpose that is within a rational structure, then life has meaning, and life has meaning regardless of what you think, and life has a meaning that comes from outside of us, to which we are supposed to conform, but also to which we have the benefit that we can conform, and then we get the benefits of the source from which this meaning comes. Loosely speaking, incidentally, I'm not talking heaven or hell, by the way. This is much more in accord with, if you look at like Stoic philosophy of living the good life, that living the good life is itself valuable because of the meaning that you are partaking in. You can see this also if you look at what Socrates talked about in Plato's Republic about, is it better to be good or evil? And to live a life that is good or to live a life that is evil, which is better for man to do, which is more to his own advantage is the question. You will see people attempt to sidestep this by claiming that, well, if you don't live well, then society is going to fall apart, and so it's better for everybody if everybody's honest and trustworthy and good. And it's just an obvious load of nonsense if you know anything about like the actual world. People get away with stuff all the time. All you have to do is have most people being trustworthy, and then you can take advantage of them and get ahead. So the idea of sidestepping this is just absurd. It's just an attempt to not face it. So what is the solution you actually do tend to see? And that's, well, says the atheist, life, many of them, that is to say, life may not have a meaning in itself, but it has the meaning that I choose to give it. Now, the interesting thing about this is, if you think about this, there are two approaches, and first I'm going to start with my preferred definition of reality. It's a functional definition, not a substantive definition, but the definition is, reality is that which, when you stop believing in it, doesn't go away. Now, the meaning you choose to give to life goes away when you stop believing in it. It is, therefore, not real. I mean, you can even see this just generally, of course. Life doesn't have meaning, but has the meaning I choose to give it, is saying, it doesn't really have meaning, but I'm going to pretend that it has meaning. And, in a sense, fair enough. You can pretend that life has meaning. You can pretend anything you want. Pretense is simply acting according to something which you know to be false. You can do it. Of course you can do it. You can pretend anything you want. You can pretend that there's a bridge spanning a chasm. It's not going to end well for you, but, in general, pretending only goes well when you have set up an area in which it is safe to pretend. Like, for example, the stage during a play, where everybody is in on it. They know that you're pretending. And so, for example, when on a stage, when you're pretending to shoot another person in a play, or I'm actually thinking of one where a woman's tried for murder. In the end, it turns out her lover had been using her, and so she stabs him. Well, the reason you're not taken and arrested and so on is because everyone's in on the pretense. It's safe. In normal things, pretending is just going to lead you into trouble because you're acting contrary to what the world actually is. And so there's something kind of, when you get down to it, it's meant to sound noble, but frankly it just sounds a little silly, because if you just say, instead of saying life has the meaning I choose to give it, life has, I'm going to pretend that life has meaning. Okay? I mean, that's nice. You're going to pretend that things aren't the way they actually are. So, that is another way of saying, I choose not to face reality. I mean, you can puff yourself up and say it in a really noble way. I choose not to face reality. But that doesn't actually make it noble. That just makes it, well, you're not going to face things. So there's no grand conclusion to this. It's just something I want to point out, that part of why people are comfortable in atheism is that they won't actually take it seriously. That they will do things like say, like, sure, life is, just a meaningless accident according to my beliefs, but I'm going to pretend that it's not. And just as a super quick thing, the reason why this really matters is that all morality depends upon meaning. Because you can, for all, moral actions, like, he murdered him. So what? And if nothing has any meaning, well, there's no answer. It doesn't actually matter. It's the reason why it's, bad to bash in a man's head, but fine to smash a piece of gravel into smaller pieces of gravel because you want smaller pieces of gravel. The man has a meaning as a man. The gravel doesn't have, the rock doesn't have meaning as a rock different from gravel. It's a different thing, but there isn't an actual meaning to the organization as the rock that is entirely lost, to a lesser state of being in the gravel. So there's that. The other thing, too, is that if life has the meaning you give it, you can always just choose to give it a really convenient meaning. The meaning I'm going to assign to him deciding he doesn't want to associate with me is that he is intimidated by how great I am. It's a lot easier than, facing reality. And that's the thing. Once you have habituated yourself to living by pretense, you're probably not going to just stop at pretending that life has the sort of meaning that those who believe in God say that it has. You're going to at some point discover that there are a lot of convenient meanings you can assign to life. That, sitting on your couch not doing anything is actually means some sort of grand triumph. I once saw somebody who in the comments talked about his years of glorious fornication, by which he meant he was assigning the meaning that not committing to the woman he was living with was somehow noble. You see that thing that like, I'm going to give this completely selfish act a noble meaning. And that doesn't lead anywhere good. So, anyway, just some quick thoughts on this. Hope this helps. It's something one runs across a lot, and there are some pretty massive, and very obvious objections to it, which actually causes some of the problems. When there are obvious, massive objections to something, people haven't embraced it because they think it's true. They've embraced it for some other reason. So you're probably going to have to come things from a different angle. But in any event, this may be useful to point out in some cases. So until next time, may you hit everything you aim at